I'm not a silly salmon. I'm an educated salmon.
You're silly salmon.
Shit. I don't want to be a silly salmon.
Too bad.
Am I a silly little salmon or just a silly salmon?
Silly salmon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Silly salmon.
I'm not even a silly little salmon.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alright.
No silly salmons. No silly little salmons in this building.
Damn. Well,
Just-
looks like I should go outside. Boom, I went outside. I'm no longer in the building.
No, in this building.
Oh, well, I'm not in that building.
No. You're not hearing me properly. This building.
This building?
This building.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm gonna leave this building.
No.
What is
You're
happening?
getting all mixed up. It's this building.
Oh, that building.
No. This building.
Oh, yeah, this one, but that building relative to that building. Therefore, it's this building.
Just building.
Yeah, the
Why?
building. So there isn't a way I can become a silly little salmon simply by exiting the building because we're in this building.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unless I were to exit the building, but I'm not able to exit the building because
So
we're
my
in this building.
brain
There's
is
no exit in this
hurting.
building.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So I can't be can I be a bit silly big salmon?
That's in the other building.
How about a big silly salmon? Maybe not a silly big salmon, but a big silly salmon.
That's also in the other building. Big salmon's in that building.
Can I be a big-headed silly salmon because my head is kind of
Everything related to largeness is in the other building.
massive, but small isn't present here or little.
Small is just not
We're
existent.
exclusively average.
Exclusively average.
Exclusively average size silly salmons.
As long as you don't own the title of that, as long as you're just a silly salmon, you can be exclusively average.
Okay.
The
You
fuck are
can't be
you
called
talking
exclusively
about?
average silly salmon.
Exactly.
You just have to be a silly salmon who
Yeah.
happens to be exclusively average.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. You see, as and Chibi, we're simply beyond you.
Oh, you're beyond something, alright.
We're beyond silly big salmons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are where the silly big salmons are at. That's your building.
Yeah, that's
I
your
see.
building.
Yeah. You are some big silly salmon.
Oh shit, Chester is dancing, dude. Whoa. Chester's bobbing its head, dude.
That's good for him.
Look at Chester. Holy shit. He's dancing, dude. Chester knows how to be
Do the
funky.
joined extinction thing with my survivor. Let me double check to make sure I don't have anything on me.
Oh man. Ah, crap. I got the bubbles. Bubbles, be with your friends. Never mind.
No.
No one asked you.
Hey, I asked myself.
Damn, you're stupid.
I asked
big
myself.
salmons.
You're a big salmon.
You guys are big salmons. They are big silly salmons. We're generally average silly salmons.
No, we're just silly salmons, but
Yeah,
we are
we're
also
silly
happen
salmons who
to
happen
be.
to be generally average.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I want to make it clear that we refer to ourselves as generally average silly salmons. I'm not saying that we are generally average silly salmons. I'm saying that we are silly salmons who happen to be generally average.
Hey,
not
Chibi,
generally
when we
average
get to
silly
extinction,
salmons. It's not our title.
let's tech everything up. Like, get as
Hey,
much
Cloudy, when we get
element
to
as we
extinction,
can.
let's
and
steal all
just...
their elements.
That's a great idea.
I like that.
I'm pretty sure the amount of silly salmon on extinction is higher than ever.
Yeah, especially with these two and us.
No, but
mean,
like the
you-
Coelacanth library.
Yes, of course, Cooler-Corsair, but they're very silly salmons, not silly
They
salmons.
they come in all shapes and sizes.
They're not
Yeah.
salmons. They're like fish.
But, what's a
Chibi.
salmon? What's a salmon?
Chibi.
They're
You know what a
salmon.
salmon is?
Yeah.
A salmon is
Yeah.
a fish, chibi.
Do you have a Manticore flag?
I like it as well as
Like-
from the game. As well, this is a really important conversation. We don't have time for medical flags.
You understand the complexity of silly salmon?
You understand?
Chibi
I don't
doesn't.
give a fuck.
Oh, well, shit, you better be giving a fuck considering silly salmon are silly salmon. You, in fact, yourself are a big silly salmon. You and Sheep, your entire tribe is silly salmon. And we are other silly salmons of average size. However, we are only silly salmons who happen to be of average size, not silly salmons
Like,
of
I'm
average
gonna
size. It's entirely different title.
myself.
What?
Nothing.
Well, silly salmons aren't capable of suicide, so clearly not.
Just being silly.
Yeah, you're just being a little silly. That's all.
little goofball.
Chibi spawn in Manticore flag.
You're just going a little too silly.
Little goofball, man.
Yep. A goofy goober, even, but still a silly
Yeah.
salmon.
It's still silly, just also goofy.
Yeah. I guess here's a philosophical questions. Can salmons be goobers?
God.
Only
And if
goofies
so-
can be goobers.
Well, yes, but but if they are silly and thus goofy, they are still considered goofy. Can they still be a goober?
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't be
Yay.
considered a goofy if they're silly.
Thanks, Chibi.
Well, yes. But a silly can act goofy.
Yeah, but doesn't mean they are
And what
goofy.
constitutes goofy is acting goofy, even if one is in fact silly.
But if they're acting goofy, they aren't goofy. They're just acting goofy.
That's fair.
That's
They're
good.
acting goofy. So could they be a silly goober?
They could.
They could be a
Mm,
silly goober, perhaps, but
I
not a
don't
goofy
think.
goober. They could be a silly goober who acts goofy. However, they are not inherently goofy simply for acting goofy, and as such are only a silly goober, but not
They-
a goofy goober.
They can't be a silly goober if they're a goof. They can't be a silly goober if they're a salmon. It's just the laws of nature.
God.
Because they'd have to be either a goofy goober or a silly salmon.
I guess the most important question is: can one renounce their salmonness?
I see
No,
it's good.
but mixed
What about with a
breeding
mutator?
will make it, you know,
Possible.
Possible.
Interspecial breeding
interspecies.
could
Mm.
allow one who is
Be a
of
silly
heritage of
goober.
both to be able to change and become a
Or
silly goober.
become
That makes
a silly goober.
exactly. Or be born
Mm.
as such in rare circumstances.
Yes.
Yes. Azrael, you have to just like take this entire section of us talking and just speed it up and put it in the video. Just a long conversation about silly salmons and goofy goobers.
My brain cannot comprehend conversations anymore, so
You
Or
need,
like-
you need,
Azrael.
Conversations happen to be on a higher level.
Yep,
you need to
Azrael.
understand. You need to understand the law of the silly salmons.
Yeah, so silly salmons are silly salmons. They are salmons that happen to be silly, except they are also called silly salmons rather than just salmons that happen to be silly. That is their title. You would reference them as silly salmons, not just salmons that happen to be silly. Of
Correct.
course. Unless, of course, they
Holy
happen to be goofy,
fucking-
in which case they would be called a goofy salmon, or a silly salmon that happen to act goofy at times.
Mm. Wait, no, incorrect. They can't be called a goofy salmon because they could only
That's what I'm
act
saying,
goofy, but
Yeah, I'm
be
saying they
silly
are
salmon.
called goofy salmons. They can only be called silly salmons that happen to act goofy unless they were interspecial bred.
Yes,
In which case they can be a goofy salmon, but that is a rare circumstance, which isn't inherently naturally.
because
occur.
there's a big racial war going on.
Yeah, they're
That
very.
never rarely happens.
This is why we hate the British, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not even goofy.
Yeah,
goobers. They're
I
just, I don't even
should.
know what they are, honestly. They're bullies, you know. They're British bullies. So, do you understand the lore of the rise tale of the goofy goobers, Azrael?
Bro, I don't even know what the fuck's going on.
So, God got pregnant, right? And then out came silly salmon
My father was a
that
woman.
was-
What?
Who God get pregnant to?
himself.
Are you talking about
Well,
my
well,
mother?
technically, it was because of
This
God
is-
got pregnant with a normal salmon, and because God's godly might and divine blood made his child not just any salmon. But
I
a
miss this
silly
part in
salmon.
I miss this part in the silly salmon Bible. I
I
don't
know.
remember
I,
this part.
Silly
it's part of it.
salmon Bible.
It's originally from an actually quite ancient text, the silly salmon.
Oh. Oh,
Have you read
silly
Silly
salmon
Salmon's
12. I
Yeah, Silly
skipped
Salmon's
that part. Yeah.
I know. I got a degree in salmonist physics, so
Mm.
yeah. I
Can you show me?
Physics.
Show me a degree.
yeah.
Samus
I'll
fish.
show you in a little while when I'm able to. Yeah, and so that's how the first silly salmon came about, right?
I
rather
more
than just
studied.
being
I more studied the
pregnant.
racial war and like the connections
my
they had.
God.
I'm not like
I'm-
big in the past, the history.
Yeah, I'm more of ancient history. I don't really know the more recent histories like that. I would need your help to understand that more.
Because there's like a massive racial conflict going on. Are you a silly salmon or are you a goofy goober? Also,
know, right?
but everyone hates goofy salmons or silly goobers.
Yeah.
because no one
No,
likes both of
they're
them.
freaks of nature. I hate them.
Mm.
I'm a racist
They're
against them.
they've got the blood of the enemy in them.
Yes, rather than the blood of Christ.
Mm.
Oh,
Blood of,
diluted, of
blood of
course.
the Satan salmon.
Yes, the Satan salmon. The Satan salmon.
Saints and Sam.
Yeah. And so the first silly salmon was like, wow, I am a silly salmon. I am both
Little
a silly
guy,
salmon,
you know.
a silly little salmon, and a big silly salmon. That's why I was curious about silly little salmon. I think they just all died out a great deal of time ago, which is why they no longer exist.
Mm.
He was
The-
all
the s-
three, and as such could procreate to make all three.
Yeah, he like it's like airbending, but a salmon.
Yeah, but yeah, they just all died.
Oh my
Mm.
But it
god.
was of natural
Like the
causes.
airbenders.
Yeah, like the other renders. They got murdered by the
The
fire
goofy goobers.
freaks. No, the Goofy Goobers weren't around yet. I don't believe
Oh.
at that time.
I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
What they locate? No, what the goofy goobers located in Antarctica? That's why no one found them.
Yeah, they were around, but they weren't active yet because they were still frozen in the ice.
Mm.
Just like that one airbender, you know?
Yeah.
Of course. And so the silly salmon, right? He had sex with a lot of guys and girls and creatures of varying types.
Okay, I'm gonna
And so
leave.
we got
Mhm.
silly salmons just
I don't
around the
blame you.
world.
Yeah.
I do blame you, in fact. It's because you're a big silly salmon.
The stream is like just started.
You haven't even joined the game yet. And their bullshit's already happening.
We
I mean,
should not
pardon
be.
me,
We should
my
not be
historical-
together at the start of streams, Olga.
We shouldn't.
This is not
Okay.
healthy.
Silly salmons, you know, they just spread around the
Are
entire world.
you
They became
guys
the
coming on
leading
or
food
not?
in the world.
I'm logging on.
Before-
It's just I'm
I'm
listening to
logging
Olga's
on.
story at the same time.
I'm waiting once Clouded to go on before I spawn anywhere. But I'm like on extinction. I just haven't spawned.
What?
And
Continue.
so, you know, becoming the leading race and species in the entire world, when the Goofy Goobers came around and started, you know, existing en masse,
Uh-huh.
but there was a bit of a problem. There were fights or racial tension, and that's kind of where the first racial tensions come from that still are around in modern day, causing war, right?
The goofy hoarded like most of the oil in the world.
They hoarded the oil, and silly salmons being, you know, peak Americans, or well, at one point, they had to go get that oil.
Yeah.
Right. That's what actually caused the Middle Eastern conflict.
Oh my god.
The silly salmons and the goofy goobers.
Yep. Silly salmons and the Goofy Goobers. Caused the current Middle Eastern crisis, right?
And then the silly salmons sieged like half the oil.
Yes, exactly.
And
And the silly
then-
salmons were, you know, a highly
They were victorious in the fight.
Yeah, they were victorious in the fight, the first fight at least. And then every single fight
You
after
can make
that.
this smaller, right, CB?
And so the Goofy
No.
Goobers were,
Oh, okay.
however, like philosophical and scientific, they were highly religious, right?
Highly.
Highly religious.
They looked up to their
created
god.
a religion that.
I mean,
you
Wait,
know,
I got a question. Is
Extinction,
this the silly salmons or the goofy goobers?
This is the silly salmons at the moment. Or no, the
Okay,
Goofy
okay.
Goobers who are highly religious. The silly salmons were not religious. Pretty much at any point. The Goofy Goobers invented the religion, Goofy Gooberism, right?
Yes.
That which Judaism evolved from, and as such, Christianity evolved from that, and Islam evolved kind of in tandem with Judaism from Goofy Gooberism.
Yes.
Right. That's why all our major religions in the world are related. Goofy Goobers create the first real religion, which was representative of God, as God does factually exist in the scientific world because he did make the first silly salmon, right? But you know, it was just a kind of misunderstanding of it, simply because God was of a cosmic horror nature, and as such couldn't be conceived by mortal minds. Yeah,
Hence comes the well-known theory that it's also false. Goldfish have bad memory. That's where that comes from.
they actually have really bad memory.
They have great memory, actually.
I know, I'm joking. I'm just.
We don't
Yeah,
joke
bro,
around
My
with the
brother
silly salmon
Gabriel
and the
would
goofy goose.
smite you all.
I know.
for knowledge.
It was just a jest. It wasn't a joke. Trust me, those are very different.
Good.
Yeah. Now, of course,
Thank God he's
after
not on
the
Earth.
Goofy Goobers lost, they tried to coerce the goldfish with incredible memories
Mm-hmm.
to betray the silly salmons, and a small number of them did, in fact. However, the majority stayed with the silly salmons, and the small number that did betray the silly salmons, were cursed by the silly salmon hierarchy to have
Uh-huh.
a terrible memory.
Like the
Right.
wizards of the silly salmons.
Exactly, the wizards of the silly salmons.
no, they're talking
The
about
you know
wizards.
the I'm forgetting the term, but
The
when there's a
term.
group, it's a type of government that's based off of a group of people, um, a small group of people.
Mm.
They
I can't wait until they talk about the Death
they
Eaters.
cursed them. And so then the Death Eaters came, right? And they killed all.
Oh my god.
What kind of species of creature are they?
They are they're Death Eaters. They eat death, and so they're kind of sad,
They eat
right?
eat death.
Because
They're a bit depresso espresso.
they're a bit depressed espresso because they don't want to really eat death, because that's kind of a sad thing, and
It is a bit
doesn't make
sad.
cycle. It kind of upsets their tummies.
It's like a lose-lose situation.
It's the situation.
It upsets the little tummy wummies.
Yeah, it's just the little tummy wummies, and people don't
Uh-huh.
like them, and that makes them feel big sad, right?
Big
Um,
sad.
in the short-term memory variation, the cursed short-term memory goldfish were like, haha, these guys are stupid, because they couldn't remember how cool they were, right? And they couldn't remember that, in fact, they
Mm.
didn't want to eat the dead, they just had to survive, right? And so they got murdered by the Death Eaters, and so when they were dead, they got eaten by the Death Eaters, because the Death Eaters eat death, right? And there was death by
Yeah.
Death Eaters caused by eating the death in the eat, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so now, Death Eaters are all gone from other causes. I'm not particularly familiar with their history after that point. But there is historical precedent for the belief that goldfishes have terrible memory. It's just the goldfishes that were cursed with terrible memory are all gone.
Wiped off the planet.
Yeah, by the Death Eaters. And they kind of deserved it, because they betrayed the silly salmons,
And they made fun of the poor little the Death Eaters.
They made fun of the Death Eaters, who
Not cool,
because they
man.
ate death. Yeah.
They're
Like,
just
really,
sad
really,
little guys.
yeah, their tummies hurt. I mean, like, come on.
Mm.
Like, why would we be eating them? So now they're all dead. But the long memory lasting goldfish are still around. And if you've ever had one as a pet, that's a very
They're going extinct though. They're at the verge.
TV deafened, dude.
yeah. She did it a couple times so far.
Yeah, because the silly salmons and goofy goobers had a peace treaty to work together and eradicate the goldfish.
Yeah. However, the silly salmons eventually came back, and very recently. This was actually only a few years ago. They
I might remember this.
they decided this was kind of immoral to try to let the long memory goldfish to go extinct, especially when these long memory goldfish were the ones who stayed with them and
Yes,
didn't as the short memory goldfish did.
and they
so-
realized all the goofy goobers were stealing all the W loot that they were getting from
Yeah, they were
the
stealing all the
goldfish.
W's and just giving them L's to the goldfish. Which
Yeah,
was just
and
kinda
they were not sharing with the silly salmons.
yeah, that was very mean. And so I believe you
Very
might have,
selfish.
yeah, since this is more recent, you might know a little bit better than I. But I do believe that they did
So-
change and
This
break
is the
down the
longest bit in
legislature.
history.
I know, right? We just gotta turn it. We gotta make a song about this.
We study a lot.
We study. We're highly intellectual individuals.
Hmm.
And so I believe you might know this better than I do, but the goldfish are being bred to try and bring them back to their former glory. Correct?
Semi.
To an extent, they're beginning.
To an
that
extent,
process.
yeah, to an extent, because they live in harsh conditions because they have to hide away, obviously, from the goofy goobers. But the silly salmons protect them clearly.
Yeah.
So they live in Saudi Arabia currently. They actually live in the Egyptian tombs, the big pyramids. That's where they're held right now. So it's pretty dry there, so they need some water, obviously. But they just
That's why
can't.
they live inside, because they're full of water, right?
Mm,
If they go outside, it will all dry up, of course.
and in fact, the silly salmons made those tombs. Did you know that?
I did remember that. Yeah.
Mm.
Cleopatra didn't make them, but Cleopatra was a silly salmon.
Cleopatra was just
How-
one of the little servants.
Oh my god, would you motherfuckers get in extinction already?
I'm
Swear to
trying.
Oh my
so the
god!
silly- would you like to know the
I think this is enough
Uh,
story time.
Well, there is one last part. The
Okay,
Cola are
I'm
related
gonna
to the silly
leave.
salmon,
I
but they
can't.
are the stinky versions, right? When they got
Well,
stinky, they turned into
I
cola
think
cans.
this is too much salmon talk for today.
Yeah, that's all. That's all. I just needed to mention that one last part, and that's why we crash. It's because
I
they're just so stinky, and it breaks.
I literally just crashed.
You did not just
You know what?
crash.
You know what? Let's just go, Asheville.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, you guys could go. I was
You guys
just trying to
can
load in.
Yeah, you guys can go. I'm gonna wait for Cloud, but you guys can go.
Sure, let's go.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So, anyways, the silly salmons.
No, we're done talking about them today. Because if we talk too much, they'll banish us.
You left. No, I just stopped, dude.
In disguise, I wanna make you mine.